Oh, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to day 11 of 31 days of tutorials. My name is Ryan Hafey with Hafey Digital, and in this video, we're going to talk about how to give the impression of motion blur in your text and video animations in Premiere Pro. So what I've done here is I've created a simple text animation in Premiere Pro, and basically if I play it from the beginning, it just kind of goes across the screen. Now, if you notice during the playback, it looks kind of jaggedy. It doesn't look nice and smooth as it crosses the screen. But there's an easy way to give it the impression of motion blur and make it look nice and smooth as it crosses the screen, and that can be accomplished with the transform effect. So if I click on the clip and go over to my effect controls panel, you can see that at the bottom, I have already added the transform effect here. Now you want to make sure that you're animating your text or video with the transform effect and not with the video motion effects up at the top of the effects panel there. And the reason for that is because of this use composition's shutter angle option, which is available in the transform effect. Now by default, when you add the transform effect to a clip, this checkbox will be checked. And to achieve the natural motion blur look, what you want to do is uncheck that. And down here where it says shutter angle, you want to change this to a value of anywhere from 180 to 300 or so. The value that you change it to will vary depending on how much motion blur you want in your animation, and the lower value that you put there is going to give you less motion blur than a higher value like 300. Now let's bring the cursor back to the beginning of the sequence here, and if we play it back, you'll see that there's now an impression of motion blur as the text crosses the screen. Now, if I go back into the transform effect and turn that value down to 0, slowly you'll start to see that motion blur disappear. So the higher that you set that value, the more motion blur you have. Now in this case, I think 300 is probably a little high. So what I want to do is lower it down to maybe 180 and see if that makes it a little bit more legible as it crosses the screen. A little bit, and you can experiment with different values to achieve the motion blur look you're looking for, but that's an easy way to achieve it if you are looking to incorporate that into your animation. And this can also be helpful if you are doing any position or scale or rotation animations with video clips as well. But again, just remember to be doing those animations within the transform effect and not the motion effects in the effect controls panel. Now as a bonus, there is another way to give that impression of motion blur in your animations without using the transform effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn the shutter angle back down to 0 so that we can maintain the animation of the text going across the screen, but we're not going to have the motion blur anymore. What I want to do is go up to my effects here and search for directional blur. Drag that down onto the clip. You can also put that on an adjustment layer if you'd like. And then over here on the effects panel, if you scroll all the way down, you will see the direction blur effect here. If I turn up the blur length, you will see that it sort of stretches the text out a little bit. Now in this case, because the text is going from the left to the right side of the screen, I don't want the direction of the blur to go up and down like it is here. So I'm simply going to change the blur direction to 90 degrees, and you'll see now it spreads it out. So if I were to play this back, and that's clearly too much directional blur in this case, but again, you can play with these values a little bit to get it exactly how you want it. Let's maybe bring it down to like 15. And that's a little bit more natural. So there you go, 2 ways to get the impression of motion blur in your animations in Premiere Pro. If you have any other tips or tricks for how to achieve the motion blur look in Premiere, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear about it. And as always, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. If it was, leave a like on this video, and we will see you tomorrow with another tutorial. Bye-bye.